Reason number 46 to get a Nissan. Features, especially the ones you get with the 2025 Nissan Kicks Play. Integrated Apple CarPlay, a spacious interior, advanced safety features, and more room in your budget. Because it's the most affordable new vehicle in Quebec. Get the 2025 Nissan Kicks Play S from only $22,774, including a $2,600 cash purchase bonus. Visit your Nissan dealer today. Until March 2nd, conditions apply. Details at Nissan.
The federal government's proposed online news bill would force digital platforms like Facebook and Google to negotiate fair deals for sharing their revenue with news media. But Bill C-18 has received backlash from some tech giants. They say that if it passes as is, they will block the sharing of Canadian news content on platforms like Facebook and Instagram. But not everyone is buying these threats coming from Meta. That's the parent company of Facebook and Instagram. Let's find out a bit more. Jean-Hugues joins us, a journalism professor at Université du Québec. Jean-Hugues, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So first things first, let's dive into Bill C-18. And of course, listen, I'm a radio host and, I work for a traditional media outlet in the country. Mm-hmm. My card's on the table. I do believe that social media giants that have been profiting from the content that Canadian news outlets produce, I think they should pay. I'm putting my cards out on the table here. But let me why don't you tell our listeners, first things first, Bill C-18, just exactly how is it trying to do that?
It's doing the same thing an Australian law passed 2 years ago is doing. So it's forcing digital giants, you've named them, Meta, which owns Google, and Alphabet, which owns Meta, which owns Facebook, and Alphabet, which owns Google, to negotiate deals with media companies in Canada. You've mentioned that, yes, for fair use of news content. I prefer to see the bill as a revenue sharing, a distribution of wealth. Because these companies make a lot of money from they sell ads. That's their business model. They sell ads. They garner our attention. In the case of Facebook, and Meta, it's 98% of their revenues, which comes from advertising, and they've got to admit that part of that attention comes from news content. In the past years, I've tried to estimate how much money Meta is making out of news, out of Canadian news specifically. And year in, year out, I've estimated that Meta in Canada makes approximately $200 million every year thanks to Canadian journalism.
Okay, so
part of that should come back to the producers of those news.
Well, I'm so happy that you're on, Jean-Hugues, because this is a number that I've been trying to find out, right? Because this is what it comes down to, right? If the case can actually be made that these companies are making money they wouldn't make if they didn't have access to Canadian news. But here, listen, let me throw the argument at you that I hear all the time. But from those who are opposed to this bill, and they say, wait a minute, hold on a second. Look at all the traffic that Google and Facebook send, to websites, whether it's the Montreal Gazette or ctvmontreal.ca or La Presse. They send a whole bunch of eyeballs to these respective sites, and then those, those websites can make money once those eyeballs are on the site. What do you say to that? Isn't that a fair deal just to send the traffic over?
It was a fair deal initially, 12, 15 years ago when Facebook started. It was a fair deal. And actually, studies show that Facebook actively pursued media companies inciting them to start their own Facebook page so that Facebook could have quality content for its users to share. So, but now that initially the deal was advantageous to both parties. Facebook had quality content, and media companies had another way for the public to find journalistic content. But as years passed on, and it was true that media companies could make money out of those eyeballs you mentioned. But as years went by, digital advertising became more and more concentrated into the hands of Google and Facebook. So even though the eyeballs are still there and they are there more than ever, media companies are less able to make money out of those eyeballs. Advertising is controlled by those two giants, and the media companies don't make any more money out of digital advertising. So that's another reason why Bill C-18 is needed.
We're with Jean-Hugues, journalism professor at Université du Québec. We're talking about Bill C-18. It's the online news bill that's being proposed by the federal government here. Jean-Hugues, off the top, you brought up Australia. I'm happy you did. Okay, so Australia has done something similar. Can we? Are there parallels between what's happened in Australia and what is happening right now in Canada? Because I seem to recall that in Australia, Facebook and Google threatened the same thing. They said, we're going to pull news. What has happened? What's been the lessons learned from Australia?
In Australia, I don't recall that Google threatened that, but Facebook did. They not only did they threaten, they did it. They pulled out news. They erased Australian news from their platform for 6 days in February 2021. And but they've put it back, and they negotiated a deal. So that's why I think that it's only bluff that we're seeing right now in Canada. People from Google, from Facebook, have 2 years back they've warned that they could do the same thing in Canada if Canada went ahead and imitated Australia. So, and we're seeing it right now. So that's why those companies also have said that they respect laws in the countries where they operate. So the only thing that the Canadian government needs to do is to pass that law. That's it, and they will abide by it. Now, would Facebook and Google go ahead and operate and really erase news content out of their platforms? They could, but I think that they would suffer from the absence of news on their platforms. They need it to. It's a mutual relationship. The relationship between news and the digital giants, it's a mutual relationship. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. They also need that content.
So,
I did a study where I took out news content from Facebook, and what's left is only entertainment. That's it. It's insignificant entertainment. Something tells me that Facebook users would not, it's fun at first, but they would. It's not content that would have them coming back.
And of course, Jean-Hugues, obviously, I'm in the news business. I'm in the radio business. I use Google a lot to find news. Right, I use the news search a lot.
True.
I don't know if I'm the average Canadian on that front, but I know I imagine Google without news results, how useful it would be, and I would be like, not so useful. Let me ask you this, Jean-Hugues, as we wrap up this interview here. Let's say Bill C-18 passes. So what happens then? It passes. Does that mean the media giants and the news giants end up at a negotiating table? What happens if this law passes?
Yes, if they keep on carrying news on their platforms, they would have to sit down with all media companies, with Post Media, with Québécois, with Bell, but also with les co-op de l'information, a news co-op out of Quebec City, Trois-Rivières, which publishes Le Soleil, Le Nouvelliste, and others. You have to sit with smaller news outlets also. So, that's also, to me, it's a complicated it's a scheme. It's a complicated bill, mechanism. It could be simplified. I mean, and the news giant, the digital giants have said that they would agree to put money into a fund, which could be distributed by peers. That would be a way to simplify the mechanism and to have the digital giants abide by it.
I have about 30 seconds here, but do you see any weaknesses in this bill?
Yeah, that's one weakness. Also, and as years go on, will Facebook still be the dominant company that it is now? What about TikTok? What about OpenAI, which also, needs journalistic text to train its algorithms? Should they put in? Should they be included? Will the bill? Will the law adapt to that changing environment? I don't know.
So many interesting questions. Jean-Hugues, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
That's Jean-Hugues, a journalism professor at Université du Québec.